I wanted to check out the first Trump interview now that he's back in the White House. I want to see his mood. I want to see if he's in a good mood, he's a bad mood upon re-entering the White House, how's he feeling. Because, look, I'll try to get some information out of this that's useful when it comes to policy-oriented stuff. I'll do my best. This is a Sean Hannity interview. Sean Hannity is not coming here to be like, look, we need to really get into the details about the constitutionality of birthright citizenship and why we had that and the founders' reasons for putting that in there. I mean, why would you say no, this is not happening. So let's just check it out for what it is, see how Trump's feeling, because Trump's first interview in office is not going to be Caitlin Collins or Rachel Maddow.
You stated that you will release the files, all of the files, as it relates to the JFK assassination. The moment you walked back in this office, this desk, this room, your carpet, how'd you feel?
Well, it was a lot of work.
Do you believe that moment, people say to me, they see a change in you? Do you believe you've changed? Is this, for example, increased your faith in God?
Yes.
All these people, the Biden family members, Joe Biden ran and said he would never do preemptive pardons. It was an issue that came up when you were leaving your first time.
He thought...
Yeah, I don't want to have to like touch all on this 5 times, so let's skip the intro. We'll just touch on it.
And welcome to Hannity, and buckle up for a very special show. After 4 long years, President Donald Trump is back where he belongs. He is in the Oval Office. Earlier, the president, he did welcome us into the White House for an exclusive first interview in front of the Resolute desk. Mr. President.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk about the moment you walked back in this office, this desk, this room, your carpet. How'd you feel?
Well, it was a lot of work. And as you know, I felt that we shouldn't have had to necessarily be here. Could have been done, a lot of work. Could have been, it would have been over. We wouldn't have inflation. We wouldn't have had the Afghanistan disaster. We wouldn't have October 7th with Israel, where so many people were killed. And you wouldn't have a Ukraine war going on. But with all that being said, I think it's bigger. It's bigger than if it were more traditional.
Only the second.
This idea that he left office, then the world became chaotic because Biden was in there, and then he came back, and now he has to fix everything. It's just fantastical. It's fantastical. There were terror attacks during his presidency. There were crises during his presidency. I mean, he mismanaged C-19 during his presidency. During the end of his presidency, it seemed unbelievably chaotic. He didn't even have a distribution plan to hand over to the Biden administration. So this idea that, like, oh, the world was so in chaos because I was not in there. If I was in there, surely the Russians wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. That misunderstands the Russian philosophy behind the war. They thought it was going to be a week. So if you think that, oh, they would have thought Trump would have sent them all the weapons and been real scary. Well, they thought Kiev was going to fall in a week. So whether you were sending them F-35s, it didn't matter. You could send them like the go-go gadget and all of the Digimon monsters and like fucking send over all of the fucking Megatron, Megazoids, whatever. It doesn't matter. Send everything. The GoBots. It's not going to matter because it's going to collapse in a week. That's their philosophy. So what Trump would have to literally threaten something like nuclear Armageddon to dissuade what the Russians had noted from decades of American policy and inaction on the issue of Ukraine, including Trump's 4-year of inaction on the issue of Ukraine. So it would be them thinking the war would be over in a week while also having to get over and intimidating them decades of American inaction. It would be hard to make the Russians truly believe that you were going to be willing to nuke them or really send troops over Ukraine at the start of this war, considering Trump's previous rhetoric around the matter and how he's previously handled it. So my point is that by the time 2022 came around, the damage was already done by both Obama, Biden, and Trump. And so I don't think who was in office at that point was going to dissuade that unless they took a drastic break with all of their policies, with all of their previous agendas. As for October 7th, I don't even know what the argument is then. Like, Hamas would have been more scared of Trump and they wouldn't have done it. They hated him. They hated him tremendously. And he aggravated many different friction points with the Palestinians. For example, moving the capital to Jerusalem. He, of course, recognized the annexation of the Golan Heights in Syria, which now the Israeli government is building upon with new invasions into Syria, new bombing campaign in Syria, and also moving even past the buffer zone dictated by the United Nations between the rest of Syria's territory and the Golan Heights, as we get announcements of doubling of the settlements in the Golan Heights and plans for more settlement expansion in the West Bank. So, I mean, was Trump gonna make the Israelis pump the bank on settlement expansion? I don't see, and if the Israelis didn't see the warning signs, would Trump have seen the warning signs in advance of the attack to inform them in advance, to stop it, to thwart it? It's a bunch of non-falsifiables taking the corpses of all these people, dragging the bodies around saying, oh, I would have been the hero. I would have saved all the dead children. It's like watching an orphanage burn down and the firefighters fighting the fire, failing to save but maybe one or two kids. And then afterwards saying, I would have saved all the kids. How? It's not false. It's impossible for you to know. What would you have done differently? What would you have done differently? If he was an extremely impressive diplomat who took a staunchly different position on the issue of Ukraine, maybe I'd believe it. But he's not.
Time in history, somebody didn't have consecutive terms.
Yeah. Well, they say it's historically bigger. I don't know about that. But I can say it showed us a couple of things. It showed us that the radical left, their philosophies and policies are horrible. They don't work. You look at crime, you look at what's gone on at the border, you look at what's going to happen, the crime that's going to happen. But I think we got there just in the nick of time. But we still have, you covered better than anybody, we have terrorists in our country by the thousands. We have murderers in our country by the tens of.
What do you mean, terrorists by the thousands? He's president now. He's getting security briefings. And if he gets his way, he'll be getting security briefings and intelligence briefings with Tulsi Gabbard. But what do you mean there's terrorists in the thousands? You know there's terrorists in the thousands and you're not arresting them in the thousands? They're on the street. You just know there's just somewhere, generally speaking, there are terrorists in the thousands. The way he's saying it is they're on the streets of America, not that there's terrorists, thousands of them around the world who do not like us, which is something, I could believe that easily, but thousands of terrorists plotting in the United States all across, I don't know. In prison probably. He's not talking about in prison. What? Why would he be Biden has 2,000 terrorists in prison? That's not a critique or that's not a dangerous thing. They'd be oh, well, it's good he's got a handle on that, would be my reaction, and I imagine the reaction of many people. That's, I guess, where I would imagine I would want a terrorist to be, if not, being eaten by worms. I don't know.
Thousands. We have numbers that came out, 11,000 people that murdered are now free and walking around in our country. And of them, I think 48%, they say, killed more than one person, and they're walking around. They came out of jails from other countries. People,
because he had an agent in ICE working to ready for his first few hundred of raids.
Hey, thank you so much for the 10 Canadian. I appreciate that. Thank you. Did Trump just say that 48% of the people that we're letting go have killed more than one person? Thank you for the 10 Canadian dollars. I was just slightly distracted by Trump saying things that are impossible to believe. Let me hear that again.
By the tens of thousands. We have numbers that came out, 11,000 people that murdered are now free and walking around in our country. And of them, I think 48%, they say.
Killed. Of them, 48. So 11,000 of the murderers, 48%.
Killed more than one person, and they're walking around. They came out of jails from other countries. And, people, they've emptied their jails. I would, if I were the president or prime minister or something of another country, I'd empty my jails right into America, into the United States. Why not? And many of them did it. If you look at Venezuela, their crime rate is down now 78%. because they took their street gangs and they moved them into the United States. And you're seeing that in Colorado and Los Angeles and other places, and we're going to take care of it.
So did Biden really say to you when you came up to the front of the White House, welcome home?
No, did somebody say that?
I read it somewhere.
I don't know. Maybe he did. I really don't know.
So you left him a letter. It was funny with Peter Doocy, and Peter said, "Oh, Mr. President, did Joe Biden leave you a letter?" He did leave you a letter.
He did.
And you had left him one, but you've never disclosed either one of them.
Well, a lot of...
I'd love the... I would pay good money to read the letter that Donald Trump left for Joe Biden. Oh my God. During that last time where he was putting on that show and act that it was all... oh my God. Even though you stole it from me with your meth addict... do you think it was cordial? I don't think the man can even attempt to be cordial. Maybe Trump is the type of guy who's like, oh, no, I mean, like all this stuff in the public, of course, it damages public consciousness and partisanship or whatever. But, we can be cordial in private. Maybe. Could be like that. Could be a kind of an Ann Coulter on the Boondocks situation in private. Kind of find that hard to believe, though.
Now would be a great time.
It was interesting. A lot of people thought it was sort of like a setup with Peter Doocy and myself, and I have a lot of respect for Peter. But he just asked me a question about the letter, and then I remember that, it's like a custom. You leave it right in the drawer of that beautiful desk right alongside of us. And so I opened it up, and I actually gave the letter to Peter.
And did he got to read it?
I guess. I haven't.
You don't know if he read it?
I just sent it to him a little while ago.
All right, before we get into there's so much substance. You are inheriting a lot of problems, a lot of things that actually scare me. Yeah. And I want to get to all of that, but I will get to all of that.
All solvable problems, Tom.
I agree.
They're all solvable.
Not easy.
With time, effort, money, unfortunately. But they're all solvable problems. We can get our country back. But if we didn't win this race, I really believe our country would have been lost forever.
Were there moments, when you think of what they threw at you, and I know you signed this declaration about no more weaponization, and we know that the preemptive pardons came.
No more weaponization. We've appointed Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General because we think he really knows how to streamline the legal process. Get out of here.
Up on Joe's way out, but you were facing a civil trial, a criminal trial, conviction, sentencing, Jack Smith, D.C.
He says this as if it's like, oh my God, can you believe they did all that to you? As if it's not, can you believe you did all of that?
Florida, Fonnie Willis. You fought through all of that to get back right here in this office. What people don't know is over there's a little red button you push. You scare people. People think it's the nuclear button, but it's really,
something else.
It's you use it for a different purpose. But the question I have was, at any point, did you doubt you would be back here?
So it's a great question. It's something I don't think about. I never really thought about it. I don't think about, gee, will I be back? I just do it. I get it done. I get things done. I'm good at getting things done, and I set my mind to it. As you know, we had a great election in 2016. I had a much better election in 2020. And if I didn't have that election, I wouldn't have run. If I thought that I didn't get the number of votes, and it was reported that I got almost 75 million votes, and that was their numbers. That wasn't the numbers. That was their numbers. That was more than anybody has gotten in history, any sitting president had ever gotten. And you lost. Had I gotten like 50 million, or 40 million, or 60 million, I would never have run. But that was like a poll. So, but I had a different attitude. Too big to rig.
Poll came out just in the last 24 hours by Insider Advantage. That's Matt Towery. He nailed 2016, 2020, and 2024. Great pollster, as you know.
Right.
And he gave you a 56% approval rating. He also said of Congress, and I had a town hall with members of Congress.
Trump also said he's going to sue those who have given him bad approval ratings. I'm not kidding. He's suing the Iowan pollster who gave him the poll that he might lose Iowa, which was nonsense. but you don't sue somebody for getting a poll wrong.
Last night that 70% of respondents want Congress to unite behind your agenda.
I watched that show. It was a great show, and you had some great people in the background.
Yeah.
I know every one of them.
Why don't we go issue by issue instead the vagueness of agenda? Because Trump's agenda shifts no matter depending on who he's talking about and what random tariff percentage he wants to throw out at any particular time.
And they're really patriots. I just saw the love, you know, as the speaker, who is doing a terrific job. The speaker is answering questions, and I saw the acknowledgement and the love they had. And those are tough people behind him. You know, these are not easy people.
There are others that are tougher.
I said, well, I don't know. This is a tough group if they want to be. They're not, nobody much tougher. But they're very unified. I think they're going to do a great job.
But they have a small majority. You went through over 200 since we've got here, and we have breaking news today that we'll get to in a minute, and especially as it relates to the border and some other issues. But you're going to need to do some of these things legislatively. You will probably play the largest role in uniting them both in the House and Senate. Reconciliation, the Senate has very strict rules governing how they can do it. Do you, one big beautiful bill, two bills, do you care at this point?
I don't care as long as we get to the final answer. I like the concept of the one bill. I guess I said one big beautiful, and that's what everyone.
Hey guys, no omnibus. Omnibus bad. Oh, Elon's against the omnibus. We want to have individual bills for individual. Never mind. One big bill. Let's all put it together. Let's all take this up, whatever.
Actually, it's sort of a nice sound to it. But I do like that concept. It could be something else. It could be a...
I mean, like this, it's just the hatred of omnibus or big package bills, like, just changes depending upon who's in power.
A smaller bill and a big bill. Right. But as long as we get to the right answer. Now, I will say that Los Angeles has changed everything because a lot of money is going to be necessary for Los Angeles. And a lot of people on the other side want that to happen. And
North Carolina, too.
Fast. Well, they don't care about North Carolina. The Democrats don't care about North Carolina. What they've done with FEMA is so bad. FEMA is a whole nother discussion because all it does is complicate everything. FEMA has not done their job for the last 4 years. I had FEMA working really well. We had hurricanes in Florida. We had Alabama, tornadoes. But unless you have certain types of leadership, it gets in the way. And FEMA is going to be a whole big discussion very shortly because I'd rather see the states take care of their own problems. If they have a tornado someplace and if they let that state, Oklahoma is very competent. I love Oklahoma.
So he would rather it be that if a state has a natural disaster and it's devastated and cannot repair, just get fucked? What do you mean I would rather this? I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if the state could handle it on their own, but sometimes the fires or the disaster are so terrible that they can't. And that's when federal support comes in. Like, for example, if there's $300 billion in property damage in a city due to an earthquake, a city government just can't manifest that. Also, a city government is not allowed to go... I mean, like a city government or a county government or like a state government can't really go into big debt. They can't. They have to, like, for example, here in Maryland, like, you got to have a balanced budget because it's not like the federal government where you can just like issue a bond or, print some more. It's not that simple. And so in some instances, depending on the devastation, it's either let them rot or go in and help them. So, I mean, in certain instances, it's only, like, a job that the federal government can do.
77 out of 77 districts, and that's never been done before. I did it 3 times. I mean, think of it, 3 times. Never been done. Ronald Reagan had the record, 56 out of 77. I got 77 out of 77. So you have to love a place like that. I love Oklahoma. But you know what? If they get hit with a tornado or something, let Oklahoma fix it. You don't need... And then the federal government can help them out with the money. The FEMA is getting in the way of everything. And the Democrats actually use FEMA not to help North Carolina.
It makes no sense.
So I'm stopping on Friday. I'm stopping in North Carolina, first stop, because those people were treated very badly by Democrats. And I'm stopping there. We're going to get that thing straightened out because they're still suffering from.
What does that mean? North Carolina was see the difference here. California. I mean, it's so obvious. California, Los Angeles, horrible, devastating fire. Even if they were changing a few decisions in advance, they couldn't have stopped everything. It was always going to be devastating. 100-mile-per-hour winds and droughts in January is not a good combination. I mean, this is supposed to be wet season, and it is very not wet, right? And it is also the hottest year in the history of recorded human history. So I would, I would just push forward that, it is a little weird that when we talk about that, it's all just incompetent governments, terrible, awful. When we talk about North Carolina, like, oh, no, it's all FEMA. The federal government hasn't done enough. The federal government hasn't done enough. It's quite frank. And I mean, look, this is not that far from how he acted in his first term. We got reports of him asking his staff when trying to coordinate disaster relief, which districts voted for him and which districts voted against him. Trying to figure out where he could concentrate his rewards for those who politically supported him.
A hurricane from months ago. And then I'm going to go to California.
Will you meet with Gavin?
I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. Look, Gavin's got one thing he can do. He can release the water that comes from the north. There is massive amounts of water, rainwater and mountain water that comes due with the snow, comes down when it...
Please don't be about the fish.
As it melts. There's so much water, they're releasing it into the Pacific Ocean. And I told him, it's a political thing for the Democrats. I don't know.
I played the tape. You said it to him in front of him in 2018.
I said it to him in front of the media and everything else.
So there's just gallons of water that at any point he could be like, just use this, but he's decided not to. Just to not to, I guess.
And nobody talks about it. The media never picks it up. You put it out. I was so happy to see that tape because some people said, is that possible? They have water coming down from the Pacific Northwest, which is a lot of water. So much water that they'd have to let some of it go at some point. They don't need reservoirs. They don't need any. They're spending all this money on these reservoirs, and they're fake reservoirs.
But the
concrete.
reservoirs were empty. The hydrants didn't work, and they're not practicing the science of forestry, which is...
The sprinklers didn't work in the homes because they had no water. Think of it. We have sprinklers. Think of it with no water. They didn't have any water.
We have sprinklers. Look at them. Imagine. No water. Doesn't work. Not a sprinkler, huh? Love how he talks.
Fire hydrants. Yeah, believe it, hard to believe. The place has sprinklers. It's nice. But you don't want to lose this office. By the way, how do you like it?
Well, I'm glad. It's great to be back. I'm not going to lie.
I've had the biggest people in the world come here. Yeah. And they come into the Oval Office and they just look and they want time to look. They're looking around. George Washington, Honest Abe.
One day maybe we can do a tour. We had a conversation, and maybe I shouldn't disclose this, but I will. And it was...
So Sean Hannity is not going to translate that gobbledygook into, like, English? He's just going to, like, allow that Trump speak to just float around? Okay.
After the 2020 election. And you asked me a question, and we've known each other for 30 years, so we have a friendship and we have a professional relationship. And the question you asked me, maybe in the end it will be better that if I came back in 4 years. And we talked about history. After World War II, Winston Churchill was thrown out, but they brought him back.
Let me pause this for a moment and read a comment from Site Chat. It was in Site Chat, so I feel like I should answer the question. Dylan Burns, I've seen a few other pro-Ukrainian commentators say that Biden's administration was, in so many words, a geopolitical failure. And reading a lot of positively into what Trump has been saying to Putin recently, do you think there's a scenario where Trump, over the past 6 months, pushes a Lend-Lease style bill for Ukrainian aid? You want to know my honest opinion? No one still really knows where it's going to end up. I think the worst case scenario is still is unlikely. I don't think it's impossible. I think really just due to Trump's previous temperament and how his last administration went, and due that there'd be some people in his immediate circle that would probably play into these compulsions, he could pull the rug out from under Ukraine if he gets too frustrated or angry or makes it, makes a shift in the night when he doesn't have certain advisors around him, just like what happened with Syria. Maybe he has learned from his mistake. Maybe his staff has learned from his mistake, even though much of that staff is already gone. And so, like, on one hand, I will always keep that in mind. But on the other, yes, there are some positive indicators from Trump where he's at least indicating that he acknowledges that Russia is the problem, where he's publicly acknowledging that it's not the Ukrainians just coming in and saying, wow, we want all of everything always and forever, and you need to allow us to hang Putin in Kiev or what. No, but that the Ukrainians have been more than willing to negotiate, and that the Russians have been the ones up to this point who have been unwilling to negotiate. In his recent statement of he thinks Putin is destroying Russia, blatantly talking about his casualty figures and hammering them, and saying that he's trying to help Russia and give them a way out of this. Now, there has to be a question about how far he can always keep the door open to this. He never has to close the door for the Russians to walk through it and say, okay, maybe I've reconsidered. But he can't just like send out endless overtures and paper airplanes over at Moscow and wait and wait and wait for some image of a smile, a crack, a change that would indicate that the Russians had shifted and that they'd be willing to negotiate. He can't do that. He has to act. Time is of the essence. It was Donald Trump, and I don't want people to forget that put his foot on the hose, moving American aid over to Ukraine during the Battle of Avdiivka, which intensifies the shell hunger, and probably killed, or at least contributed to killing, thousands of people. And at a really integral and important moment in the war, at a strong defensive choke point that the Ukrainians had defended for the entirety of the war in the Donbass. That had become legendary in Ukrainian military folklore. Not folklore. I guess you can know it is kind of entered popular folklore. But so when I think about Donald Trump possibly sending over a supplemental, I keep all this in consideration. I keep in consideration that he was more than willing to stop the aid and sink the immigration deal package when it was politically beneficial on the campaign trail and he was running for president. I still remember the fact that Donald Trump had constantly hammered on the campaign trail against aid and is largely responsible for helping bring anti-Ukrainian sentiment into the base of the Republican Party through a lot of his commentary. I still remember the fact, and this is the thing that scares me, is that if people think Biden is a failure, Trump could end up just being Biden part 2, but worse. Think about it this way. Trump has said in some instances a while ago and hinted, and some people who have been put in positions around him, like Mike Waltz, have previously hinted about large increases in military aid to the Ukrainians if a deal is not made. But Trump recently indicated that there should be maybe even an expectation that the amount of aid to Ukraine decreases. Not that it increases to add pressure, but that it decreases, which could mean that the Trump strategy could be slowly increasing the pressure on sanctions, hoping the Europeans take up the majority of the aid while slowly shifting away from military aid packages, and shrinking the aid packages, which means some more economic pressure, less military pressure, and hoping the Europeans handle it, which I could see that just dragging out the war. It would be the same critique of the slow drip, 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 drip. It'd be the same drip approach, but it just could be even maybe more of a drip, depending upon him delivering on their rhetoric. And that's the thing. It depends upon what rhetoric you choose to believe, what outfit, what vibe, what aesthetic of Trump you decide to believe is Trump, and what day of the week you meet him, and with what advisors. That's why, this type of princely Trumpian politics around him is so important, to see if it's going to be Tulsi, RFK, or Mike Waltz, or who gets their claws into him. And so, yes, it is true that it could be that one of the more obvious paths of least resistance ends up being traveled. The Russians don't end the war, they continue, and Trump has to pass another supplemental aid package. It could also be that he does do that, and it's less than the last aid package, and it's the continuation of the drip, and then it could be either just as bad as some of the worst parts of the Biden presidency, worse, on top of the fact that there's always the underlining fact that Trump could always just flip the table at any point if properly provoked and not properly managed, which is the thing that always scared me and pushed me always away from supporting Trump. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that pushes me away from supporting Trump, even outside of this. But just that in and of itself is pretty concerning. Because, I mean, if there's anything the Ukrainians need, they need the ability to plan into the future. And if you don't really know what your support base is going to look like, that's a problem.
Grover Cleveland is the only other American president that did not serve consecutive terms. And my answer to you was, I thought it would be bigger if you came back.
It's turning out to be bigger. And I think one thing is happening is people are learning that they can't govern and that their policies are terrible. I mean, they don't want to see a woman get pummeled by a man in a boxing ring.
No.
They don't want to see men in women's sports and otherwise. They don't want to see them, and they don't want to have transgender for everyone. They don't want a child leave home as a boy and come back 2 days later as a girl. A parent doesn't want to see that. And there are states where that can happen.
Oh.
They don't want to see taxes go through the roof. Like, this is the only group of people they want to raise your taxes. They say, we want to raise your taxes. You know, if they don't work with us on the Trump tax cuts.
They supposedly, we're not going to raise middle class taxes. We're going to raise taxes on the rich. That was the entire pitch of the campaign trail.
Extending. That would mean it would go back to the tax.
Now, in order to do some of the transformative programs, there would probably be tax increases. For example, if you wanted to have a big public option, which I do think is a proposal that they should use as a transitionary period to, really changing our healthcare system from the top down, that would probably mean some increase in taxes. But you would have to say that, yes, there is an increase in taxes, but then you get healthcare free at the point of service through this, as well as the downstream economic benefits of better healthcare services being provided to workers.
We got the largest tax cut in history. That would mean the taxes would go up more than any tax hike in the history of our country. And normally you'd say that's got to be the easiest negotiation in history, because if they did that, how could they ever win an election? But they'll fight us on that. They fight us on things. It's incredible.
Here, I ran into...
They don't use common sense. In my opinion, the Democrats don't use common sense.
And common sense won the day in the election.
Yeah, but the amazing thing, I'm watching now. Now it's time, and, a few months have passed, and the election's over, and you see what happened, and it was a rout. I won all 7 swing states, and we won by millions of votes, the popular vote, millions. And nobody can even believe some of the numbers. And how about with African Americans, with Hispanics, with everything, how well we did? Nobody can believe the numbers. How about with youth? I won youth by 36 points. Now, maybe that's because I went on TikTok. I don't know. But I'm starting to have a very warm spot.
TikTok is going to be sold, right?
I think TikTok's going to maybe stay around.
People like Senator...
I'll tell you, people want to buy it. People want to buy it.
But those that say they know say it's a spying app for the communist Chinese.
But you can say that about everything made in China. Look, we have our telephone.
You can say that about everything made in China. Oh my goodness.
One's made in China for the most.
Well, wait, wasn't some of his products made in China?
We have so many things made in China, so why don't they mention that?
Let me get to some
issues. The interesting thing with TikTok, though, is you're dealing with a lot of young people. So
they love it.
Is it that important for China to be spying on young people, on young kids watching crazy videos on things?
I don't want China spying on anybody.
No, but they make your telephones, and they make your computers, and they make a lot of other things. Isn't that a bigger threat?
I'm sure.
He does not care. Trump just could not care. He had that one talk with that one businessman about TikTok, and he flipped overnight.
So that'll be part of your discussions with President Xi, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Let me go to the border. We do have breaking news today. I ran into Tom Homan as I was walking in today. Right. And so far, 308 total arrests. 296 detainees, and the first deployment of military assets to the U.S. border. The deployment includes active duty troops in the National Guard.
Right.
And here's my biggest fear and concern beyond the Iranian assassination squads is we now know 14 million. We don't know how many gotaways. We don't know the total number. But we have known terrorists in our country. Mm-hmm. We have known murderers, rapists. We have violent criminals, cartel members, gang members. Now,
yeah, some people even elect the rapists.
I would imagine if you came from Iran and Syria and Egypt and Afghanistan and Russia and China and Venezuela, you didn't come here because you want a better life for your children. I would imagine those known terrorists are planning an attack on our homeland. At a moment's notice, you're going to be in this desk, maybe sitting at this desk or maybe up in the residence, and they're going to call you down in the Situation Room because our homeland is under attack. I would like to be wrong, but when you have known terrorists, you have to believe that they are going to attack our homeland. Mm-hmm. That would change their trajectory, that moment of your entire presidency. That has to weigh on you.
Yeah, it could be, and I know I've watched you for a lot of years, and you actually make one statement before you say that. You say 100% certain.
I do.
That's a pretty big statement.
And then I say, I pray to God I'm wrong.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong too, and I won't comment, but I tend to agree with you. It depends. We'll see what happens. Look, we have a lot of great people right now, a lot of great people on this situation. This was a gross miscarriage of common sense to allow people to come in. And I believe the number is 21 million people, and a large percentage of them are criminals all over the world. This is not just South America. This isn't, we talk Venezuela, that's a big abuser, but these are countries from
Iran,
the
Syria?
Congo, countries that you don't even think of. The Congo has emptied their prisons out into the United States.
The Congo has emptied their prisons into the United States. Let me attempt to even figure out what this means. Congo prison, United States. Are prisons in the Congo being emptied out into the U.S.? No. Well, that was easy.
We're not thinking about the Congo. We're thinking about South America. It's much more than South America. But prisons from all over the world have been emptied out into our country by Biden, allowing it to happen. I don't even know if he knew what the hell was going on, but who would want this? I always say to people, you always like to understand, like in a business here, you want to understand.
Like, if you're a journalist, wouldn't you follow up, like, the Congo is emptying up their prisons into America? How? How are they putting them on boats? Where are these boats traveling? Just anything.
The other side, why do they want something, et cetera, and you figure it out. And there's usually an answer, almost always. I don't understand, why does somebody want open borders where, and they say the vote, okay, but I did well with the Hispanic vote, if you're looking at Hispanic.
If you're looking at
Hispanic. They say they do it because they want to think they're going to stay in power, it's going to be better for Democrats. I don't really believe that. Besides that, they cheat so much, they don't have to do that. They cheat so well, they're very good at cheating. The only thing they're good at really is cheating. But here's the thing I ask. Why would somebody say that open borders are good, where jails and mental institutions from other countries and gang members right off the streets of the toughest cities in the world are being brought to the United States of America and emptied out into our country? Why would anybody that even likes, you don't have to love our country, you have to like it. Why would anybody that likes our country, the Democrats, allow that to happen? And even now, I watch them on television, they're trying to justify it. You can't justify it. The only reason it can be is two reasons. You're stupid, and I don't think they're stupid. I think anybody that cheats that much and that well is not stupid. You're either stupid or you hate the country.
Oh, so we just hate the country. Well, I'm happy that his first interview in office is as conciliatory as you could imagine. Trump era. Witch hunt's over.